Admiral Hyunwoo Kim sat in his command chair, staring at the message that had just arrived from the Outer Rim. After 30 years of service in the Federation Navy, he thought he had seen everything. Wars with alien pirates, rebellions on distant worlds, and even first contact with 3 different species. But this message made his hands shake. The border station at Kepler 442 had detected something impossible. A fleet of ships was approaching Federation space. 200 vessels, each one massive and clearly built by human hands. But the technology readings made no sense. These ships were more advanced than anything the Federation had ever built. "Sir, Captain So-min Park is ready for departure," his aide reported. Hyunwoo nodded. So-min was one of his best officers. If anyone could handle first contact with an unknown human fleet, it was her. "Tell her to be careful. We have no idea who these people are or what they want." 2 days later, Captain So-min Park guided her scout ship toward the mysterious fleet. Through her view screen, she could see the vessels clearly now. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Each ship looked like it was made from metal that seemed to flow like water, and strange lights pulsed along their hulls. "This is Federation vessel Aegis calling unknown fleet," So-min spoke into her communicator. "Please identify yourselves." For a long moment there was only silence. Then her view screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The face that appeared made So-min gasp. It was a woman who looked to be in her 30s with Korean features and long black hair. But her eyes seemed to hold knowledge far beyond her years. She wore a crown that looked like it was made from starlight itself. "Greetings, daughter of Earth," the woman said in perfect Korean, then switched to Federation Standard. "I am Ji-yoon, Queen of the Hanul Colony. We have returned home after a very long journey." So-min tried to keep her voice steady. "Ma'am, we have no records of any Hanul colony in our database." Ji-yoon smiled sadly. "I am not surprised. We departed from Earth over 200 years ago aboard the colony ship New Horizon. Your people have forgotten us, but we have not forgotten you." The New Horizon. So-min had heard that name in history classes. It was one of the early colony ships that had disappeared without a trace. Everyone assumed it had been destroyed or lost in space. "If you truly are from the New Horizon, then you are welcome home," So-min said carefully. "But I must ask about your fleet. Our sensors indicate your ships carry weapons of incredible power." Ji-yoon's expression grew serious. "Captain Park, may I come aboard your vessel? There are things I must explain that cannot be said over an open channel." An hour later, So-min watched in amazement as a small craft detached from the flagship and approached her ship. The vessel looked like it was made from the same flowing metal as the larger ships. When it docked with the Aegis, So-min felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the air itself had changed. Ji-yoon stepped aboard wearing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Up close, So-min could see that the crown was not just decorative. Thin wires of some unknown material connected it to the woman's temples, and tiny lights pulsed along its surface. "Your Majesty," So-min said, "not sure of the proper protocol for greeting a queen from a lost colony." "Please, just call me Ji-yoon," the queen replied. "We have much to discuss, and time may be shorter than we hope." They sat in So-min's quarters, and Ji-yoon began to tell a story that seemed impossible. The New Horizon had not been lost. Instead, it had found something in the empty space between star systems. An ancient derelict ship from a race that had vanished millions of years ago. "My ancestor, Queen Mi-young, made a choice that changed our people forever," Ji-yoon explained. The alien vessel contained technology beyond anything humans had ever seen. But it was not just technology. It was a test, left behind by beings who had evolved beyond physical existence. "What kind of test?" So-min asked. "A test of worthiness. Many species had found that ship over the millions of years it drifted through space. Most tried to simply take the technology by force. They all failed and were destroyed. But my ancestor chose a different path." Ji-yoon touched her crown, and suddenly the room filled with holographic images. So-min saw the colony ship New Horizon, much smaller and more primitive than the vessels waiting outside. She saw it docking with a massive alien structure that hurt to look at directly. Mi-young chose to prove humanity's worth not through conquest, but through understanding. She and the other colonists underwent a process that joined them with the alien technology, not as slaves or masters, but as partners. The images showed colonists entering strange chambers filled with light and energy. When they emerged, they looked the same but moved differently, as if they carried great power within themselves. "The process changed us," Ji-Yun continued. We gained abilities that seem impossible. We can manipulate matter at the smallest level, see into dimensions beyond normal space, and live for centuries while remaining young. But we also gain knowledge of the universe that can drive the unprepared mind to madness. Somin stared at the holographic images. Why are you telling me this? And why have you returned now? Ji-Yun's expression grew dark. Because humanity is in terrible danger and most of you do not even know it. The ancient beings who left that technology did not vanish by choice. They evolved beyond physical form to escape an enemy that still exists in our reality. What enemy? We call them the Void Hunters. They consume entire civilizations, turning their matter and energy into more of themselves. For over 200 years, my people have been humanity's hidden shield, fighting them in the dark spaces between galaxies, but they have grown too strong. Now they turn their attention to the core systems of human space. Somin felt a chill run down her spine. How long do we have? Months, perhaps less. They move slowly but with unstoppable purpose. When they arrive, they will not negotiate or show mercy. They will simply begin the process of consuming every human world. The holographic images changed to show battles in space, unlike anything Somin had ever imagined. Ships that seemed to be made of living darkness fought against vessels that blazed with the light of stars. The scale was beyond anything the Federation had ever faced. What do you want from us? Somin asked. An alliance. Your people have something we lost long ago. The ability to build and grow quickly. Our technology is powerful, but our numbers are small. Together we might have a chance to stop the Void Hunters. And if we refuse? Ji-Yun stood and walked to the view screen, looking out at her fleet. Then you will face them alone, and humanity as you know it will cease to exist. Somin felt the weight of the moment. She was just one ship captain, but somehow she was being asked to speak for all of humanity. I need to report this to my superiors. Of course. But Captain Park, please understand. The choice your people make will determine not just their survival, but their future. The path we offer will change humanity forever. There will be no going back. After Ji-Yun returned to her ship, Somin sent an urgent message to Admiral Hyun-woo. Within hours, she received orders to escort the mysterious fleet to the Federation capital world. As the combined fleets began their journey, Somin couldn't stop thinking about Ji-Yun's words. The Queen had spoken of change, of evolution, of becoming something more than human. But at what cost? And what would happen to the billions of people who called themselves human if they chose to walk this path? Behind them, space itself seemed to ripple as the Death Fleet moved through hyperspace. Each ship carried the power to remake worlds or destroy them utterly. So men realized that humanity stood at a crossroads. They could choose to evolve and face the unknown future, or remain as they were and possibly face extinction. The choice would be made soon, and there would be no second chances. President Taehyun Choi stood before the Federation Council, his face pale as he read the report from Captain Somin Park. Around the massive circular chamber, representatives from dozens of worlds whispered among themselves. The news of the Death Fleet's arrival had spread quickly, and fear filled the air like smoke. Order, order! Taehyun called out, hitting his gavel against the podium. We must hear all the facts before we make any decisions. Dr. Woo Jin-yeon stepped forward to address the council. As the Federation's top expert on alien technology, his words carried great weight. I have studied the data that Queen Ji-Un provided about her people's transformation. What they claim is both fascinating and terrifying. He activated a holographic display that showed the ancient alien vessel. This derelict ship appears to be a testing facility created by a species we know nothing about. According to the Queen's records, it has been drifting through space for millions of years, waiting for civilizations to discover it. A representative from the mining worlds raised her hand. Dr. Yan, is it possible that this is all an elaborate trick? Perhaps these people are not human at all, but aliens pretending to be our lost colonists. Woo Jin shook his head. I ran genetic scans on the samples Queen Ji-Un provided. They are definitely human. But they have been changed at the cellular level in ways I can barely understand. Their DNA has been enhanced with structures that seem to exist partially outside normal space-time. General Dong Min-jung stood up abruptly. This proves they are dangerous. No human should have such power. For all we know, they caused whatever threat they claim to be protecting us from. General, please, Taehyun said calmly. Let us hear the Queen's full explanation before we jump to conclusions. The chamber's main screen activated, showing Queen Ji-eun aboard her flagship. Even through the transmission, her presence seemed to fill the room with quiet authority. Honored members of the Federation Council, Ji-eun began. I understand your fear and suspicion. 2 centuries ago, my ancestor faced the same choice you face now. Let me show you what really happened. The display changed to show historical records from the Hanul colony. The images were clearer than any historical footage the Federation possessed, as if they had been recorded yesterday. When the New Horizon found the ancient vessel, our people were dying. The colony ship's life support was failing, and we were lost in empty space with no hope of rescue. The alien ship was our only chance for survival. The records showed the colonists boarding the mysterious vessel. Inside, they found chambers filled with swirling energy and machines that defied understanding. But they also found something else. Tests that challenged not their strength or intelligence, but their character. The ancient beings wanted to know if we would use their gifts for creation or destruction. They showed us visions of other species who had failed the test. Races that tried to steal the technology for conquest were simply erased from existence. Representative Ye Jin Seo from the Diplomatic Corps leaned forward. What made your people different? My ancestor, Queen Myung, chose to approach the technology as students, not thieves. She offered to prove humanity's worth through their actions, not their ambitions. The test took 3 years to complete. The images showed colonists working alongside alien machines, not trying to control them, but learning to cooperate with them. Slowly, the humans began to change. Their movements became more graceful, their eyes brighter, and strange energies flowed around them like living light. The process was voluntary, Ji-eun continued. No one was forced to undergo the transformation, but those who chose it gained abilities beyond imagination. They could heal injuries with a touch, reshape matter with their thoughts, and perceive the hidden structures of reality itself. Dr. Wu Jin studied the readings his instruments were giving him. The energy signatures match what we detected from your ships, but how is this possible? The laws of physics are incomplete, Ji-eun finished. There are layers of reality beyond what your science has discovered. We learned to work with forces that exist in dimensions your instruments cannot detect. General Dongmin slammed his fist on his desk. This is madness. You speak of changing the fundamental nature of humanity itself. What gives you the right to make such decisions for our species? Ji-eun's expression remained calm, but sadness filled her eyes. General, we made no decisions for anyone but ourselves. For 200 years we have protected humanity in secret, asking nothing in return. We reveal ourselves now only because the threat has grown beyond our ability to handle alone. Tell us about these void hunters, President Taehyun requested. The display shifted to show images that made several council members gasp in horror. Ships that looked like they were made from crystallized darkness moved through space, leaving empty void where star systems had once existed. They are the remnants of a war that began before life existed on Earth, Ji-eun explained. Once, they were a proud species that sought to understand the universe. But something went wrong. They became obsessed with reducing everything to its basic components, believing that only by consuming all matter and energy could they achieve perfect understanding. Captain In-ho Lee, Ji-eun's military advisor, stepped into view. We have fought them for generations. Each battle teaches us more about their nature, but also shows us how vast their forces have become. They have consumed hundreds of civilizations, growing stronger with each victory. Why haven't they attacked the Federation before now? Asked Representative Seo. Because we stopped them, In-ho replied grimly. Every time they moved toward human space, we intercepted them in the dark between galaxies. But our numbers are small, and theirs grow with every world they consume. The mathematics are simple. Eventually, they will overwhelm us. Dr. Wu Jin looked troubled. You say your people have these incredible abilities. Why can't you simply destroy the Void Hunters? Ji-eun touched her crown, and for a moment, the lights in the council chamber flickered. Doctor, imagine trying to fight an ocean with a cup. We are powerful as individuals, but they are numerous beyond counting. What we need is not more power, but more people capable of wielding that power. You want to transform us, General Dongmin said flatly. We want to offer you the choice. Ji-Yun corrected. The same choice our ancestors had. You can remain as you are and face the Void Hunters with conventional weapons that cannot harm them. Or you can evolve and stand with us as equals in the coming battle. President Tae-hyun felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. What would this transformation involve? Each person would enter a chamber similar to those on the ancient vessel. The process takes several days and cannot be reversed. Not everyone survives. Perhaps 1 in 10 lacks the mental flexibility to handle the changes. Those who do survive emerge with abilities that let them function on the same level as our people. The council chamber erupted in shouting. Some representatives demanded immediate integration, while others called for the Death Fleet to be driven away. Through it all, Ji-Eun waited patiently, her expression showing the weariness of someone who had carried a terrible burden for too long. Finally, President Tae-hyun called for order. Your Majesty, you must understand our position. You are asking us to fundamentally change what it means to be human. Such a decision cannot be made quickly. I understand completely, Ji-Eun replied. But President Choi, time is not our ally. Our scouts report that the Void Hunters have begun moving toward the Galactic Rim. They will reach the Outer Federation worlds within 6 months. Representative Seo stood up. What proof do we have that any of this is real? For all we know, you could be the threat, not these mythical Void Hunters. Ji-Eun nodded slowly. You have every right to be suspicious. Perhaps a demonstration would help. She turned to her advisor. In-ho, please target the dead world in this system. Through the view screen, the council members watched as one of the Death Fleet ships approached a lifeless planet on the edge of the system. Energy beams that seemed to bend space itself struck the world's surface. But instead of destruction, something miraculous happened. The dead rock began to change. Atmosphere formed around it, oceans appeared on its surface, and within hours, green continents spread across its face. When the process was complete, a garden world hung in space where only barren stone had existed before. This is our gift to the Federation, Ji-Eun said quietly. A demonstration that our power is meant for creation, not destruction. We could have taken what we wanted by force, but we choose to offer partnership instead. The council chamber fell, silent as the representatives stared at the newborn world. Dr. Wu Jin's instruments were going crazy, trying to measure energy levels that exceeded anything in their databases. The choice is yours, Ji-Eun continued. But remember that choosing to remain unchanged is still a choice, and choices, once made, cannot be undone. As the transmission ended, President Tae-hyun looked around the chamber at the faces of the people who would help decide humanity's future. Some showed fear, others wonder, and a few displayed the kind of desperate hope that comes when facing impossible odds. The debate would continue for days, but Tae-hyun already knew what the outcome would be. When faced with extinction or evolution, most people would choose to survive, no matter the cost. The question was whether they would still be human when the transformation was the Federation Council had been in session for 3 days straight. Representatives argued, shouted, and pleaded as they tried to decide humanity's fate. Outside the Great Chamber, protesters filled the streets of the capital. Some demanded that the government accept Queen Ji-Eun's offer, while others insisted that the Death Fleet was a trick designed to enslave humanity. Ambassador Ye-jin Seo felt exhausted as she reviewed the proposals for the 100th time. As head of the diplomatic team negotiating with Queen Ji-Eun, she carried the weight of billions of lives on her shoulders. The outer colonies are threatening to secede, her aide reported quietly. Governor Kyung-ho Nam says he'll declare independence rather than submit to what he calls alien contamination. Ye-jin rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building. And the core worlds? Split down the middle. The industrial planets want the advanced technology, but the agricultural worlds fear losing their traditional way of life. Before Ye-jin could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Emergency lights flashed red as a priority message appeared on every screen in the chamber. Admiral Hyun-woo Kim's face appeared, his expression grim. All council members, please remain calm. We have just received a transmission from the Kepler 438 system. The mining colony there has gone dark. Long-range sensors show massive energy signatures consistent with the void hunters that Queen Ji-un described. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. President Tae-hyun Choi gripped his podium so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Admiral, how long until we can send help?" "Sir, I'm already dispatching Admiral Byung-ho On with the Third Fleet, but it will take them 2 days to reach Kepler 438. If Queen Ji-un is correct about these void hunters, I'm not sure conventional weapons will be effective." As if summoned by his words, Ji-un appeared on the main screen. Her usual calm demeanor had been replaced by urgent concern. "President Choi, we are detecting the same energy patterns. The void hunters have arrived sooner than we expected. I am dispatching my brother, Prince Jae-wook, with a squadron of our ships to assist your admiral." General Dongmin Jang stood up angrily. "We don't need your help. The Federation Navy has protected human space for over a century." Ji-un's eyes flashed with something that might have been pity. "General, please understand, this is not a matter of pride. The void hunters do not fight like any enemy you have faced. They do not seek territory or resources in the way you understand them. They seek to reduce all matter and energy to its most basic state, then incorporate it into their collective consciousness." Dr. Woo Jin Yeon was studying the incoming data from Kepler 438. "Your Majesty, our sensors are detecting structures that seem to exist partially outside normal space. How is that possible? They have learned to manipulate dimensions beyond the 3 you perceive," Ji-un explained. "Their ships exist in multiple realities simultaneously, making them extremely difficult to target with conventional weapons." 2 days later, the terrible truth became clear. Admiral Byung-ho On's fleet arrived at Kepler 438 to find horror beyond imagination. The mining world was gone. In its place was an empty sphere of space where not even dust remained. The 2 billion people who had lived there had simply ceased to exist. "Admiral On to Federation Command," came the shaken voice over the communicator. "The planet, it's just gone. There's nothing left, not even debris." From his flagship, Admiral On watched as strange ships emerged from what looked like tears in space itself. The vessels were impossible to describe. They seemed to be made from crystallized darkness that hurt to look at directly. As they moved, reality itself seemed to bend around them. "All ships prepare for battle," On commanded. "Target the lead vessel and fire at will." The Federation ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams, missiles, and projectile weapons struck the alien vessels. But instead of exploding or showing damage, the Void Hunter ship simply absorbed the attacks. The energy and matter of the weapons seemed to flow into the dark hulls, making them slightly larger. "Sir, our weapons aren't working," reported Captain Sung-ho Park from the destroyer Triumph. "They're actually feeding off our attacks." Before Admiral On could respond, the Void Hunters began their own assault. Beams of impossible darkness reached out from their ships, and wherever they touched, Federation vessels simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not damaged, just erased from reality as if they had never been built. In minutes, the Third Fleet was reduced from 50 ships to fewer than 20. Admiral On watched in horror as his finest crews and vessels were consumed by an enemy that seemed to mock the very laws of physics. Then Prince Jae-wook arrived. The Hunyul ships emerged from hyperspace like diving angels, their hulls blazing with energies that made the stars themselves seem dim. Prince Jae-wook's voice came over the communication channels, speaking with the same strange authority as his sister. "Federation vessels, fall back to minimum safe distance. We will handle this." What followed was a battle unlike anything in human history. The Hunyul ships moved through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. They phased in and out of dimensions, struck at the Void Hunters from angles that shouldn't exist, and wielded weapons that seemed to rewrite reality itself. For the first time, the Void Hunters met their equals. Their ships of living darkness clashed against vessels of controlled starlight. Space itself became a battlefield as 2 kinds of impossible technology warred for supremacy. But even the advanced Hunyul ships paid a price. Prince Jae-wook's flagship took a direct hit from a Void Hunter weapon that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Half his crew screamed as alien knowledge flooded their enhanced minds, driving them temporarily insane. After an hour of combat, the Void Hunters retreated. But it was not a victory, it was merely a delay. As they disappeared back into the spaces between dimensions, they left behind a message that every human in the system heard directly in their minds. Your evolution will be consumed. Your complexity will be reduced. Resistance is temporary. Absorption is inevitable. Back on the Federation capital world, the council chamber was in chaos. The footage from the battle had been broadcast live, and everyone had seen the Federation's most powerful fleet reduced to scrap in minutes. "We need to accept Queen Ji-yoon's offer," Representative Kim from the Industrial Worlds declared. "Our conventional forces are useless against this threat. And become monsters ourselves?" Governor Kyung-ho Nam responded via hologram from his distant colony. "I would rather die human than live as something else." President Tae-hyun felt the weight of the moment. Through the chamber's windows, he could see crowds gathering in the streets. Some carried signs demanding integration with the Hanul technology, while others burned effigies of Queen Ji-yoon. Ambassador Yejin Seo stood to address the council. "I have been in direct contact with Queen Ji-yoon's scientific team. The integration process they offer is not what Governor Nam claims. Dr. Yoon-ji Ko, their chief scientist, has provided detailed records of what the transformation involves." She activated a holographic display showing the integration chambers aboard the Hanul ships. "The process does not remove humanity, it enhances it. Those who undergo the transformation retain their memories, personalities, and emotions. They simply gain access to abilities that exist in dimensions beyond our normal perception." Dr. Woo Jin stepped forward. "I have studied their medical data extensively. The enhanced humans show no signs of mental degradation or loss of individual identity. If anything, their cognitive abilities are increased by orders of magnitude." General Dong-min remained unconvinced. "But at what cost? These enhanced humans wield power that could reshape matter at will. What happens when they decide that baseline humanity is obsolete?" Queen Ji-yoon's voice filled the chamber as she joined the discussion remotely. "General, your fear is understandable. But consider this. If we wished to dominate or replace baseline humanity, we could have done so already. We have chosen instead to protect you for 2 centuries, asking nothing in return. Then why reveal yourselves now?" demanded Governor Nam. "Because the Void Hunters have grown beyond our ability to contain alone. In the battle at Kepler 438, we lost 12 ships and over 1,000 of our people. We cannot sustain such losses indefinitely." Admiral Hyunwoo joined the discussion from his command ship. "Your Majesty, if we agree to this integration process, how many of our people would need to undergo the transformation?" "Not everyone," Ji-yoon replied. "Perhaps 10% of your population would be sufficient. But they would need to be volunteers. The process cannot be forced without risking complete mental collapse." Captain So-min Park, who had been quietly observing from the back of the chamber, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I volunteer to be among the first." The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. So-min was a respected officer, known for her level-headed approach to problems. If she was willing to undergo the transformation, it carried significant weight. "Captain Park," President Tae-hyun said carefully, "are you certain about this decision?" So-min nodded firmly. "Sir, I have seen what the Void Hunters can do. I have also seen the nobility and sacrifice of Queen Ji-yoon's people. If there is a chance to save humanity by becoming something—" Captain So-min Park lay in the integration chamber, her body surrounded by swirling energies that seemed to exist in more dimensions than her eyes could perceive. Dr. Yoon-ji Ko, Queen Ji-yoon's chief scientist, monitored the process from a control panel that responded to thought as much as touch. "The neural pathways are adapting well," Yoon-ji reported to Queen Ji-yoon, who watched the procedure with obvious concern. "Captain Park's mind is more flexible than most. She should complete the transformation within the next few hours." Ji-yoon nodded, but her expression remained worried. Around them, dozens of other chambers held Federation volunteers undergoing the same process. Some, like Admiral Hyunwoo Kim, had surprised everyone by volunteering despite their initial skepticism. Others were young scientists and soldiers eager to gain the power needed to fight the Void Hunters. But not all the chambers held living occupants. 3 volunteers had already died during the integration process, their minds unable to handle the flood of cosmic knowledge that came with enhanced perception. Each death weighed heavily on Ji-yoon's conscience. "Your Majesty," came Prince Jae-wook's voice through the communication system. "We're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. The Void Hunters have consumed 2 more systems. They're moving faster than before." Ji-yoon closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command. Through her neural crown, she could perceive the locations of every Void Hunter ship within 100 light-years. They moved like a plague through space, leaving empty void where thriving worlds had once existed. How long until they reach the core systems? She asked. 6 weeks, perhaps less. They seem to be targeting the most heavily populated worlds first. In the integration chamber, So-Min's eyes suddenly opened, but they were no longer entirely human. Threads of silver light moved through her irises, and when she looked at Ji-eun, her gaze seemed to pierce through multiple layers of reality. I can see them, So-Min whispered, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. The Void Hunters. They're not just ships, they're pieces of something larger, a collective consciousness that spans galaxies. Dr. Yunji helped So-Min sit up, checking her vital signs with instruments that measured more than just physical health. How do you feel, Captain? So-Min flexed her fingers and small sparks of energy danced between them. Different. I can perceive layers of space-time that I never knew existed. And the knowledge. It's overwhelming. I understand now why some people can't handle the transformation. Queen Ji-eun approached the chamber. Captain Park, are you still yourself? Do you remember your life before the integration? So-Min smiled, and despite the silver threads in her eyes, the expression was completely human. I remember everything, Your Majesty. I'm still So-Min Park, daughter of Busan, officer in the Federation Navy, but I'm also something more now. I can feel the quantum foam that underlies reality, and I understand how to manipulate it. To demonstrate, So-Min held out her hand. The air above her palm shimmered, and suddenly a perfect flower made of crystallized light appeared. It was beautiful beyond description, and it radiated a sense of peace that filled the entire chamber. The enhancement doesn't take away our humanity, So-Min explained. It gives us the tools to express it in ways we never imagined possible. Over the following weeks, the integration process continued. Volunteers from across Federation space arrived at the hidden facilities that Queen Ji-eun's people had established. Not all survived the transformation, but those who did emerged with abilities that seemed godlike to baseline humans. Admiral Hyun-woo Kim, now enhanced, found that he could perceive the tactical situation across entire star systems simultaneously. His consciousness could split into multiple threads, allowing him to coordinate fleet movements with perfect precision. Dr. Woo Jin-yeon discovered that his enhanced perception let him understand alien technology at an intuitive level. He could see the mathematical principles underlying Void Hunter weapons, and began developing countermeasures that worked in dimensions beyond normal space. But with great power came great responsibility and terrible knowledge. Captain Seung-ho Park, So-Min's brother, was among the second wave of volunteers. When he emerged from the integration chamber, his first words were a warning. I can see the truth about the Void Hunters, he said, his enhanced eyes wide with horror. They weren't always monsters. They were once a species like us seeking to understand the universe, but they found something in the deepest reaches of space that drove them mad. Now they believe that only by consuming everything can they achieve perfect understanding. Queen Ji-eun felt a chill at his words. What did they find, Captain? Evidence that the universe itself is dying. That all matter and energy will eventually decay into nothingness. They became obsessed with preserving existence by incorporating it into their collective consciousness. They think they're saving the universe by consuming it. This revelation changed everything. The Void Hunters weren't just mindless destroyers. They were a species driven insane by cosmic knowledge. They genuinely believed their actions were necessary for the preservation of existence itself. But knowledge of their motivation didn't make them less dangerous. 3 more Federation worlds fell to the Void Hunter advance, their populations consumed in the space of hours. Each victory made the enemy fleet larger and more powerful. The first major battle between enhanced humans and the Void Hunters took place near the Vega system. Captain Seung-ho Park led a combined fleet of Federation and Hanul ships against a Void Hunter armada that had come to consume the system's 4 billion inhabitants. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Ships phased in and out of multiple dimensions. Weapons that rewrote the laws of physics clashed against shields made of compressed spacetime. Enhanced humans fought with the fury of a species facing extinction, but they also fought with the precision that came from perceiving reality in ways their enemies couldn't predict. Seung-ho's consciousness split across 17 different tactical threads, coordinating attacks that struck the Void Hunters from angles that existed in dimensions they couldn't perceive. His enhanced crews worked in perfect harmony, their minds linked through quantum entanglement that allowed instant communication across any distance. For the first time since the war began, the Void Hunters not only retreated, they suffered significant losses. 12 of their ships were completely destroyed, their dark matter hulls dispersed back into the quantum foam from which they had been constructed. But victory came at a terrible price. Half of Sung Ho's enhanced crews were driven temporarily insane by the alien knowledge that flooded their minds during combat. They had seen too deeply into the Void Hunters' collective consciousness, and the experience of touching that cosmic madness nearly broke their sanity. The enemy's knowledge is like a virus, Dr. Yunji reported to Queen Ji-un after treating the affected crew members. When our people connect too deeply with Void Hunter technology, they risk being overwhelmed by the same insanity that drove the original species to become what they are now. Ji-un realized they faced a terrible paradox. To fight the Void Hunters effectively, they needed to understand them. But understanding them too well risked becoming like them, driven mad by cosmic knowledge that no conscious mind was meant to possess. Meanwhile, the political situation within the Federation continued to deteriorate. Governor Kyung-ho Nam's rebel colonies declared war on any Federation world that accepted enhanced humans. They viewed the transformed volunteers as traitors to the human species. They're no longer human, Nam declared in a broadcast to his followers. They've sold their souls for alien power. We will not be contaminated by their presence. The irony was bitter. As enhanced humans fought desperately to save their species from extinction, other humans fought to prevent them from succeeding. Admiral Hyun-woo Kim, his consciousness now able to perceive the strategic situation across multiple star systems, made a grim calculation. Even with our enhanced abilities, we can't fight a war on two fronts. Either we focus on the Void Hunters and let the rebel colonies do as they please, or we waste resources fighting our own people while the real enemy advances. Queen Ji-un faced the hardest decision of her long life. She could use her death fleet to force the rebel colonies to accept integration, potentially saving their populations from the Void Hunters. But doing so would prove Governor Nam's point about enhanced humans being a threat to baseline humanity. We will not force integration on anyone, she decided finally. Those who choose to remain baseline human have that right, even if it means they face the Void Hunters without our protection. As the enhanced human fleets prepared for the next phase of the war, they carried the weight of knowing that millions of their own species viewed them as the enemy. They had gained the power of gods, but they remained tragically human in their desire to protect people who no longer considered them kin. The Void Hunters continued their advance toward the core systems, growing stronger with each world they consumed. Time was running out, and the enhanced humans faced a terrible truth. They might have to choose between saving humanity and remaining human themselves. The final battle for the fate of the species was approaching, and nobody knew what form humanity would take when it was over. The alarm that woke Admiral Hyun-woo Kim was unlike any he had heard before. It resonated not just through his enhanced hearing, but through dimensions of perception that baseline humans couldn't access. Through his neural connection to the Federation Defense Network, he immediately understood what it meant. The Void Hunters had arrived at Earth. All enhanced personnel to stations, Hyun-woo commanded, his consciousness splitting across multiple communication channels simultaneously. This is not a drill. The enemy has reached humanity's birth world. On the bridge of his flagship, Hyun-woo watched as the largest Void Hunter fleet ever assembled emerged from the spaces between dimensions. Thousands of ships made from crystallized darkness surrounded Earth's moon, their hulls pulsing with the absorbed energy of 100 consumed worlds. But these ships were different from the ones they had fought before. They had grown larger and more complex, incorporating the matter and knowledge of countless civilizations. At their center floated a vessel so massive it dwarfed Earth's moon, a construction that seemed to exist in 17 dimensions, simultaneously. "Sir," reported Captain Somin. "Park from her position at the tactical station. The enemy flagship is beginning some kind of transformation. Our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups." Through his enhanced perception, Hyun-woo could see what the Void Hunters were planning. They intended to use Earth's entire mass and the life force of its 10 billion inhabitants as raw material for a weapon capable of cracking stars. If they succeeded, they would have the power to consume entire solar systems in minutes instead of hours. "Contact Queen Ji-un immediately," Hyun-woo ordered. "Tell her we need the Death Fleet here now." But even as he spoke, Hyun-woo knew that conventional warfare, even with enhanced human abilities, could not stop what the Void Hunters were attempting. The enemy had learned from their previous defeats and adapted accordingly. Queen Ji-un's response came within minutes. Her image appeared on the main screen, but she looked different somehow. The silver threads in her eyes had spread, creating patterns that seemed to shift and change as Hyunwoo watched. "Admiral, I can see what they're planning," Ji-un said, her voice carrying harmonics that spoke to dimensions beyond normal space. "The weapon they're building will make them unstoppable. If it's completed, they will be able to consume entire galaxies. Then we have to stop them," Hyunwoo replied firmly. Ji-un was quiet for a long moment. "There is a way, but it requires a sacrifice that will change humanity forever. We must undergo one final evolution, not just enhancing our abilities but transcending physical existence entirely." Dr. Yoonji Ko appeared beside her queen, her expression grave. "We have discovered the deepest secret of the ancient technology. It was designed not just to test species for worthiness, but to guide them toward a form of existence that can survive the eventual heat death of the universe." "What are you suggesting?" Hyunwoo asked, though part of his enhanced consciousness already understood. "Complete integration with the quantum foam that underlies reality," Ji-un explained. "We would become beings of pure consciousness, able to manipulate matter and energy at the most fundamental level. But we would no longer be physical entities in any sense that baseline humans would recognize." Captain So-min Park looked up from her station. "Your Majesty, how many people would need to undergo this final transformation?" "Only volunteers," Ji-un replied. "Perhaps a few million across all of human space. But their sacrifice would provide enough quantum coherence to reshape the nature of this entire region of spacetime." The implications were staggering. A small portion of humanity would evolve beyond physical existence to save the rest. But what would that mean for the species as a whole? Before anyone could respond, the Void Hunter weapon began its activation sequence. The massive flagship at the center of their fleet started drawing energy from the Earth's moon, slowly but inexorably converting its matter into exotic particles that would fuel their star-cracking device. "We're out of time," Ji-un announced. "I'm beginning the final evolution process aboard my ship. Any volunteers should transfer to the Hanyul vessels immediately." What followed was humanity's most desperate hour. While the Death Fleet fought a delaying action against the Void Hunter Armada, thousands of enhanced humans made the choice to transcend physical existence entirely. Admiral Hyunwoo was among the first volunteers. As he entered the final integration chamber, he felt his consciousness expanding beyond anything he had experienced during his first enhancement. His awareness grew to encompass not just the battle around Earth, but the quantum structure of reality itself. Captain So-min Park followed, along with her brother Seung-ho and hundreds of other enhanced humans who chose to sacrifice their physical forms for the chance to save their species. But the most surprising volunteer was Dr. Woo Jin, Yan, despite being one of the few baseline humans who had refused initial enhancement. He chose to undergo the complete transformation when he realized what was at stake. "I've spent my life studying the universe," he explained to his shocked colleagues. "Now I have the chance to become one with it. How can I refuse?" As each volunteer completed the final evolution, their physical bodies dissolved into patterns of pure energy that existed across multiple dimensions. But their consciousness remained intact, enhanced beyond anything they had imagined possible. Queen Ji-un was the last to transform. As her physical form faded away, her consciousness merged with the quantum field that connected all the evolved humans. Together, they became something unprecedented, a collective intelligence that retained individual identity while operating with perfect unity. The battle that followed could not be described in conventional terms. The evolved humans fought the Void Hunters not with ships and weapons, but by directly manipulating the fundamental forces that governed reality. Where the Void Hunters sought to reduce everything to basic components, the evolved humans worked to preserve and enhance complexity. They didn't destroy the enemy fleet, they transformed it, helping the tortured consciousness at its core remember what it had been before cosmic madness consumed it. The revelation that followed changed everything. The Void Hunters were not evil. They were the surviving remnants of the first species to achieve consciousness in the universe. Billions of years ago, they had discovered that the cosmos was gradually winding down toward heat death, and this knowledge had driven them insane with the desire to preserve existence by consuming it. But the evolved humans showed them a different path. Instead of trying to prevent the universe's eventual end, they could transcend it by evolving beyond physical existence entirely. The final confrontation took place in dimensions that had no names. Queen Ji-un, now existing as pure consciousness enhanced by quantum coherence, reached out to the central intelligence that controlled the Void Hunter fleet. "You don't have to carry this burden alone," she communicated through patterns of thought that existed beyond language. "There is another way to preserve what matters." The ancient consciousness that had once been a species like humanity slowly responded. For the first time in eons, it remembered what it felt like to hope instead of hunger. "Show us," it pleaded across dimensions of meaning that had no physical equivalent. What followed was not destruction, but healing. The evolved humans helped the ancient consciousness release its grip on the physical matter it had consumed. Across space, dead worlds began to reform as the Void Hunters' ships dissolved back into the matter and energy they had absorbed. Extinct species were restored from the quantum echoes of their existence. Civilizations that had been consumed centuries ago suddenly found themselves alive again. Their worlds rebuilt from the patterns that the universe itself remembered. The threat was over, but the cost had been enormous. Millions of humans now existed as beings of pure consciousness, able to reshape reality, but no longer able to experience it in the way their physical kin did. As the crisis ended, the evolved humans faced a choice. They could remain as transcendent beings, guiding the physical universe from beyond, or they could find a way to reconnect with their baseline human relatives. Queen Ji-un, speaking for all the evolved consciousness, made a decision that would define humanity's future. They would become the galaxy's shepherds and healers, working to restore what had been lost and prevent future tragedies. But they would also maintain their connection to baseline humanity, serving as bridges between the physical and transcendent realms. The Death Fleet became the Peace Fleet, its ships now crewed by volunteers who could shift between physical and quantum existence as needed. They spread across the galaxy not as conquerors but as healers, helping damaged worlds recover and guiding other species toward their own evolutionary potential. On Earth, the billions of baseline humans watched in wonder as their evolved relatives worked to repair the damage done by the war. The moon, which had been partially consumed by the Void Hunter weapon, was restored in a matter of days. Governor Kyung-ho Nam, who had led the resistance to human enhancement, found himself face-to-face with Queen Ji-un when she manifested in physical form to address his colonies. "You were right to fear us," Ji-un admitted to the shocked governor. "We are no longer human in the way you understand the term. But we are still your children, your siblings, your